The bright side of addiction is recovery. In this edition of Recovery Coast to Coast, we're going to meet Joan Brown. She's an amazing woman who's been in recovery for 38 years and has been in the field of addiction for 28 years at one of the top treatment programs in the country, Starting Point of Tampa. She's going to share her story of going from rock bottom to the very best of recovery. And later on in the podcast, legendary actor and a person in long-term recovery, Dick Van Dyke, will share his thoughts on risk and change. I'm Neil Scott, host of Recovery Coast to Coast, and by the way, our website is Recovery Coast to Coast, spelled out one word, .org, O-R-G. That's recoverycoasttocoast.org. Following 15 years of nightly broadcasting on iHeartRadio in Seattle, we've now upgraded to a national podcast, which is available obviously to anyone at any time, and it features interviews with authors and clinicians and recovering celebrities and everyday people in recovery. Plus, we'll bring well-vetted resources together for individuals and families and friends. So we invite you to enjoy it, and we invite you to share it with your friends as well. Recovery is an American way of life. We'd love to hear from you. Drop me a line if you would, and let me know about the show, what you think of it, what we could do better, perhaps. Recovery Coast to Coast at Comcast.net. Recovery Coast to Coast is supported by Sundown M Ranch. Now, they are one of the oldest and most successful treatment programs and affordable programs in America. They have successfully treated, over 200,000 adults, adolescents, families for the past 50-plus years. It's where recovery becomes a reality. There are a ton of treatment programs in this country, and there are a lot of really good ones. But you have to be careful because there are some big fancy programs that frankly overpromise and underdeliver, if you get my drift, and others that are in it just for the money. Now, what I'm trying to say is do your homework. And when you do your research, take a look at Sundown M Ranch. It's in Washington State. They started over 50 years ago, 1968, I believe. Check out the other programs as well, but definitely put Sundown on your list. You can check their program, their background, their facility, their staff, and more, sundown.org. Licensed, certified, accredited. The staff's been together a long time, and many have actually gone through the program themselves. By the way, when you're looking for an addiction treatment program, be darn sure that they're members of NAATP, National Association of Addiction Treatment Providers. They are ethics-based. They are they represent all the main treatment programs in the country. Be sure the treatment program you choose is a member of NAATP. Check out the website. If you have any questions, you can reach them at 1-800-326-7444 or shoot them an email at info@sundown.org. It's obviously all 100% confidential. The road to recovery, it begins at Sundown M Ranch. Let's meet Joan. I met Joan Brown at the National Association of Addiction Treatment Providers annual leadership conference in Denver. She is an amazing woman who chronicles her drinking and her recovery with grace and humor. She also is the host of a recovery podcast, carrying the message of hope and the promise of recovery. Let's listen to my conversation with Joan Brown. We welcome you back to Recovery Coast to Coast, America's voice for recovery. It's great to be down here at NAATP. I guess it's over. I'm from Seattle. Denver is kind of over. It's a big national conference, 500-600 people here, and it's always great to meet new friends and see old friends. Joan Brown has stopped by the broadcast location. Joan is at Turning Point of Tampa. I spent a lot of time down in Tampa many years ago helping start an NCA program down there. And Joan is the Director of Professional Relations. And I ran into her yesterday, and she told me that during the pandemic, they decided when they couldn't do a whole lot that they would put together a podcast. And I love it when treatment centers put together podcasts. And Joan, welcome to our podcast. And let's begin by talking about Joan. You just told me that it's been, a few years in recovery?
few years in recovery. Yep.
Like 38?
Oh yeah, around that. That's about right.
But
Yeah.
who's counting,
But
right?
who's counting?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I got sober in California.
Really?
The best place to get sober.
Where did you go through treatment?
I did not.
You went right into the rooms.
I went in the rooms and I shook a while, and my arms flew up for a couple of sessions or a couple of meetings, and I just basically got sober in the rooms. And
What part of California, Joan?
Hermosa Beach, California.
Nice.
Yep.
Nice.
You'll
What brought you into the rooms? Tell me a little bit about the background.
Well, I was born and raised in Canada.
CANADA.
Hey, all about that. I had, basically normal life. I mean, there was nothing awful about it, no traumatic things going on, but I just always had this sense of not being happy and not being comfortable in my life. So I was always seeking something. Finally, I found out that there was a spiritual hole, that I was seeking something to help that spiritual hole, and I found alcohol and drugs. And,
What did they do for you?
they changed my feelings. I did not want to feel what I was feeling. And when I was using, I did not feel those feelings any longer, which was great.
So that was a new friend for Joan.
Oh, it was my buddy. It
Yeah.
was, yeah. Who needs a boyfriend?
Yeah.
Who needs friends? I got booze.
How bad did it get?
It got pretty bad because what I like to do geographics. I like to move around a lot, and that got a little insane.
And they probably didn't work. Just
I
a hunch.
wanted them to work.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, no, they didn't work. And I actually ended up in Hermosa Beach, California. I ended up working at a bar, a little country western bar, and it only served beer and wine because I couldn't remember how to pour a drink. So beer and wine was pretty easy, and it sort of went downhill from there. I guess my bottom was just that I didn't want to do that anymore. I can remember sitting in a bar, and I was holding a drink up, and I thought, what's going to happen tonight? Where am I going with this tonight?
How old were you at that time?
I was a young woman of 29 years old, and I was done, and I didn't know what to do about it. It was funny what happened. I went out on another huge tear, and I came home, and my roommate was going to a program, and I was like, "Why are you going to what are you doing?" And she says, "Well, I drink too much." And I went, "You drink light beer? What the heck?" And she says, "Well, I'm going to one of those meetings." And I went, I'll go with you. What the hell? I'll go with you.
Nothing else to do that night? Yeah.
The bar's a little light tonight. I don't have to work. I'll go with you. And I went with her to one of those meetings, and it was a midnight meeting. There was 20 motorcycles lined up outside the meeting, and I went, okay, this looks like it's going to be fun. It was candlelight. And
Nice.
everybody's smoking in the room. You can't really see who's in there. And it was called the Wrist Slashers meeting.
Oh my God.
And I thought,
The Wrist Slashers
yep,
meeting?
that was what they called the meeting, the Wrist Slashers meeting. It was a midnight meeting, and it was like, okay, so you don't want to cut your wrists, so go to a meeting. And I felt like I had landed in Oz. It was like, this is great. I love the people in this room, and I felt part of, which was good for me to feel part of. So that's kind of what happened. And I picked up a white chip that evening, and I have not picked up another white chip in 38 years.
Wow. What was that first year like for you, Joan?
That was a lot of finding out what I could do in sobriety. It was like, because my sponsor would say to me, you can do anything you want in sobriety as long as you're willing to pay the price.
How soon did you get a sponsor?
That was about a month or so in, and the reason I picked the woman I picked is because she was going to travel school, and so was I, and I thought, oh, well, we'll have something to talk about, because I don't know what we're going to talk about. I mean, I'm not drinking, so what are we going to talk about? And she saved my life. That woman saved my life. Absolutely. I would go to her house in the middle of the night, knock on the door, go, I can't sleep. She'd open the door. She'd go lay on the couch. And I'd sleep on the couch because I was detoxing and shivering and stupid. And she saved my life. I just love her because we did my fourth step, and it was a long, painful day for her, I'm sure. And I had written all of this stuff. And she said to me, okay, dear, let's talk about your character defects. What do you think are your character defects? And I said, well, I really don't think I have any. I mean, really, come on. She goes, That's okay, dear. I wrote them down for you.
Oh my gosh. Oh,
I was insulted. I
that's
thought
choice.
that is insulting. Someone writing down my character defects.
Was
And
she right?
oh, come on. That woman nailed it. Yes, she was right. And she handed me the paper, and off I went. Began my journey of working with her, working my character defects, and doing what we do in the
Yeah.
rooms.
How long did you still work at the bar?
I actually had quit the bar at about, I think I had quit the bar about 30 days in.
Mm.
Now, I used to go back to the bar for maybe another 40 days and so, and I would try to talk all my friends and coming to the rooms
A
with me.
recruiter.
Yes, I was a recruiter, and one night I was sitting in there, and someone had knocked over a pitcher of beer on me,
Oh boy.
and I hadn't drank, and I was like, oh my God, I smell like beer, oh my God, and I
Made the
ran.
next meeting interesting.
Well, I ran home and I called my sponsor and I said, "What am I going to do?" And she says, "Take a shower and stay out of the bars. You don't belong there anymore. What's wrong with you?"
Yeah, yeah.
And so it was like, okay. So I stopped that behavior, thank God. And then my next effort was is I knew everybody's cars outside the parking lot of the bar and stuff. So I would go and leave pamphlets on their windshields, underneath their windshield wipers, and leave
Wow.
pamphlets because I thought I will help these people get into recovery.
Talk about carrying the message, Joan.
Damn straight.
You were sending it.
And I didn't recruit one of those people. I can't believe why, but that's
Oh.
ridiculous. But that's what I did, and I did a lot of crazy stuff like that when I was new. But I stayed sober and I kept coming back, and that was the message I heard: is keep coming back no matter what.
Right, right. And what is recovery like for you today versus that first year in Hermosa Beach?
Well, recovery looks like almost the same. I go to a lot of meetings. I sponsor people.
Mm.
I'm still sponsored. Oh
Mhm.
yeah, I'm really still sponsored. Come on. I still have some of those character defects that flare up every once in a while, and I have to take care of them because I want to keep my sobriety. It's more precious to me today than it was when I was first sober. I have gained so much, and I've got so much more back. I work at Turning Point of Tampa, and I've been there 28 years.
Wow.
I've never been anywhere for that long.
How did you get from Hermosa Beach to Tampa? Was that a geographic?
It wasn't really. My parents lived in Florida, and I'm an only child and was doing my thing out in California. So I was sober about 10 years, and I had gotten married, and my parents were starting to ail and fail and all of that, getting older, and so I moved back with my husband to Florida to take care of them,
Mm-hmm.
and that was my living amends for them. Because every time I tried to make amends to them, they were like, "No, you're not that bad," but they had no idea.
Yeah, yeah.
And so my living amends was be there for them, do what you need to do for them, and help them get to what they need to do.
Right, right.
So that's how I moved. And then within 4 months, I got a job at Turning Point of Tampa. And
How did that come to be? Did you decide you wanted to be in the field, or
well,
was it serendipitous?
well, I'll tell you, before we moved, I was working for Princess Cruises, which was really a good job because I was the person who delegated how much booze people would get at
Oh
parties.
my goodness.
I was great at that job.
Wow.
And I was sober, and I went, "Oh, I know how many cases. Yep, and you're going to need a bit more of that." So I was really good at that job. But I remember sitting there one day, and I went, I would like to work and help people stay sober. I'd like to work in treatment or something. And moved to Florida, and a friend of a friend said, "Hey, they're hiring a behavioral health tech out there at Turning Point." And I went like, "Okay, let's go." And I worked at Turning Point as behavioral health tech for about 10, 12 years, which I loved
Mm.
because I was working with the clients, the
Right,
patients'
right.
clients, and I loved it because I could watch them get sober. I could see them, and the light would come on, and it'd be like, it was so meaningful to me to see that. I began working there, and I would walk around at noon with a big blue book, and I would say, "Let's talk. Let's read together at lunch." And they're like, "Go away. We are having lunch." I'm like, "Yeah, but we got to do
Oh
this."
boy.
Yeah, I was a little zealous. again.
Yeah, yeah,
That's kind of on my list.
yeah, yeah.
And I settled down and realized what they needed, and they really just needed people to talk to, and they needed people to help them get to where they needed to be, and they needed direction, and they needed people to share their story with them.
For
And
listeners unfamiliar with Turning Point, a thumbnail sketch.
sure, Turning Point of Tampa is a drug and alcohol treatment center. We also treat eating disorders. We opened our program in 1989. We've been around 35 years. Well, next year will be 35 years. We are an in-network treatment center, so
Hmm.
we take all kinds of insurance.
How many beds?
We have 52 beds. We use a 12-step philosophy, but all of our therapists are all master level. We do group therapy, we do individualized therapy, we do didactic groups. We do everything that
Is it co-ed?
it's co-ed, men and women 18 years and above.
Hmm.
And we do a really good job. We've sort of been the flagship in Tampa for a long time. A lot of people respect us in Tampa, and being part of
Yeah,
NAATP.
35 years will get you that
Yeah,
credibility.
right. Yeah, and
Absolutely.
Yeah, and you do keep doing the right thing, and people want to be part of what you're doing, the movement of what you're doing.
Mhm.
So we do a lot of great activities for our alumni. We've had all kinds of shows with like Mark Lundholm and
Oh, Mark's a great guy.
do you know him?
Yeah, I do.
He's crazy. I love that guy.
First thought wrong.
Exactly. And we've done several shows with him. We've had
Yeah.
over 600 recovery people at his shows.
Oh, my goodness.
And alumni.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
we try to do one of those every year.
Yeah.
And people love it because you're having fun in recovery.
It's so important, too, because alumni is really an extension of family.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And if you don't take care of the people that you're sending out there to become sober,
That's right.
You're not doing your job.
There are unfortunately many treatment centers around the country that are treat and release. They're more interested in getting the next person in bed than they are the person who is just quote unquote graduated.
Yeah.
And so continuing care is, I think, vital because, as we both know, treatment does not take place in 30 days.
No,
Thank you very much.
No, it doesn't. And I'm very proud to say that we have a great alumni base,
Great.
and we like to have alumni come back and work for us. We've had several people, come through the program and come back and be our nurse, go get their nursing degree and come back. So it's really a great opportunity for our alumni to give back. And
Yeah, sure.
yeah, they love it.
Joan, tell me about the podcast.
Ooh, the podcast.
What is it called?
It's the Point is Recovery podcast. It got started because COVID got started. I moved to another position. I moved to the director of marketing, and it's been about 15 years now. In 2019, we were like, oh my God, we've just got pulled off the road. We can't go.
Yeah.
Like, what are we going to do? And there was three of us, Chris Nasudi, one of the hosts, Ashley Neal, the other host, and myself. We decided, why don't we continue to help people? Why don't we continue to carry the message? And what are we going to do? And we had no idea what we were doing. And we said, let's buy some podcast equipment. Let's get some speakers. Let's get some microphones. Let's get a soundboard. And let's get a guy that knows what he's doing. And we got a guy, Jeremiah Fowler, and he's our little tech guy, and thank God we have him. And the three of us just started inviting guests to come on. And we started with Ashley Neal and her story, and she works at Turning Point, and she's an alumni. And then Chris did his story, and he's an alumni. And then we started inviting people on and going, hey, come on, let's see how this goes.
Wow.
And we've had some great people on, and we've had, a couple of football players. I'm sure you're aware of Vance Johnson.
Oh, I love Vance. Oh my gosh.
He's a good guy.
Yeah.
That was one of the best podcasts.
I'll bet.
Oh my God. During the podcast, he calls his father and says, hey, Dad, how are you?
Oh, boy.
I'm on the podcast, and I just wanted to say hi. And we were like,
Oh.
wow.
Yeah.
So
last time I saw him was a couple of Super Bowls ago because I also do sports broadcasting.
You do?
Yeah, and I cover the Seattle Seahawks.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, for CBS Radio and for Sirius XM. And so I run into Vance occasionally, and he is just a delight, an absolute delight.
He is a spiritual man.
He is.
Yep.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, that was.
Wears that right on his sleeve.
Oh yeah, and that's great.
Yes, yes, indeed.
He definitely shares the message, carries the message.
Yes, indeed. How often do you do the podcast?
So when COVID shut us down. We were doing the podcast twice a month. It was working pretty good, and then we had to go back on the road. So, now we're doing it once a month,
Ah,
which is kind of sad, but I'm working on talking my boss into going twice again.
nice.
Yeah, because people love it. I mean,
It's amazing. It's on demand. People can listen to it at their leisure.
Right.
I think I told you we were on the air for 15 years every night, but it was a fixed time. Now anybody can listen at any point in time, which is wonderful. So how would people find your podcast?
well, we're on all the large platforms. We're on Buzzsprout, Spotify, Apple.
The point is,
The point is Recovery Podcast. But you can find us, and you can go to our website, tpftampa.com, and find our podcast guests. Yeah, it's been a remarkable journey. We just had Abra Schiff from
oh my goodness,
Do you know Abra?
I've had her on before. Yes,
Oh, you have?
absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah, we just had her on. She was our last one for Real Recovery. She was fun. She was really fun.
yeah.
But we like to have a diversity of different people. We've had a Vietnam vet on, and he told his story about being in Vietnam and just the devastations of that, and going through the VA program and getting sober. And he's carrying the message today to all the vets where he works at Bay Pines, and he is awesome, Eugene. We've also had on Ken Seeley from Intervention TV.
Oh sure. Uh-huh.
I'm sure you know
Yes,
Ken.
yes.
And he was great. I've known him for a long time, and he was just so lovely on the podcast.
Yeah.
It's so neat that people come on and they're excited to be on there with you, and they want to talk about recovery. And
Absolutely.
it's amazing but it's a great way to share recovery. I mean, geez.
The website is tpoftampa.com. You can find out all about the Point Is podcast and find out about Turning Point of Tampa that has been helping people find their way to recovery for 35 years.
Yes.
And you've got 38 years, one day at a time.
One day at a time. 28 years at Turning Point, 38
Wow.
years recovery. I know.
I always say the bright side of addiction is recovery, and you embody that. Your
Oh.
smile, your essence, all of it.
You're so kind.
And thank you so much for coming by.
Okay, well, I'd like to invite you to come on our podcast.
You got a deal.
Okay.
I'm Neil Scott. The program is Recovery Coast to Coast, and we'll be right back. We'll continue with Recovery Coast to Coast with some final thoughts about risk and change from Dick Van Dyke. That'll be coming up in just 30 seconds.
She has always been your baby, but when your daughter got into drugs and alcohol, she turned into a stranger. What do you do? Where do you turn? Contact Sundown M Ranch. Sundown's nationally recognized youth treatment program guides young people back to a life free of drugs and alcohol. All treatment is gender specific and directed by caring certified professionals in a safe environment. You can get your daughter back and get to know her again. Go to www.sundown.org to learn more.
Well, that wraps up this edition of the national podcast, Recovery Coast to Coast. If you've enjoyed the podcast, we'd love to hear from you. Our email address, recoverycoasttocoast, one word, @comcast.net. Let us know where you listen from. We'd love to hear that. Also, please hit the subscribe or follow button. It's absolutely free. You'll be notified the next time we publish a podcast. You can also write a review of our ongoing podcast. Let us know what you'd like, what you don't like. Join us next time for America's Voice for Recovery, Recovery Coast to Coast, the national podcast. Remember, if you know someone who is experiencing problems with alcohol or any other drug, here's a 24-hour national helpline. It offers free information and confidential treatment referrals. Spanish-speaking individuals, they are available as well, 1-800-622-HELP. And another shout out to our sponsoring organization, Sundown M Ranch, successfully treating individuals, including adolescents and families, well over 50 years. Sundown.org. I'm Neil Scott, reminding you to stay healthy, live in gratitude, and be kind to others. Remember, the bright side of addiction is recovery. Pass it on.